Okay, I think we'll make a start. We've got 2 hours in total for the session. That's going to be spent with 1 hour on the candidates for leader and 1 hour on the candidates for deputy leader. Just a couple of housekeeping things first. Toilets, there's ladies' toilets just around the corner there. Gents up a little side set of stairs in that far corner. We've not heard anything about fire alarm testing, so if you do hear something that sounds like a fire alarm, we all get out. Hopefully, I think there's an emergency exit somewhere, but hopefully we can get out that way. Yeah, sorry, I'm not had a run through of the building. Just a couple of things. If people could switch off or switch to silent any mobile phones, although if anyone wants to tweet what's happening, there is a hashtag, which is hashtag green leadership. That's capital G, capital L. Something else to be aware of, there are music exams taking place in the some of the rooms downstairs. So polite applause should be fine, but I think avoid stamping on the floor, or you may find you've got a certificate for percussion or something. Just a quick cover of how we're going to run the event. All the candidates will get a 2-minute introductory speech. There is one candidate for leader and 2 for deputy leader who aren't here. Wendy, who's on the right of the panel here, is going to be reading out statements for those people. So they will have some input to the meeting, but that will be all. There will be a question and answer session then, and then there'll be a kind of 1 minute at the end summing up for each of the candidates. The candidates are in alphabetical order from my left. So that's Simon Cross. And please shout if I get any names wrong or mispronounce them. Simon Cross, Clive Lord, Caroline Lucas, David Malone and David Williams. And I'm going to ask them to do their introductory speech in reverse alphabetical order. So we'll start with David Williams. I'll pass the mic to him now.
Thanks ever so much. Well, it's nice to be home. This is where I grew up. I was born in Salford, a place called Hankey Park, which probably people know in this area as a site for the film Love on the Dole. Knocked down and then moved to Kersal into a council flat. My dad worked a lathe in Trafford Park. My mum worked behind the counters at British Home Stores. So a very working class background. But it was 1960s. I went to university, I did a degree at Newcastle and 2 master's degrees here at Manchester University. I became a teacher, a lecturer in FE, then a lecturer in HE and an economic development officer. Domestically working on major projects in Merseyside and internationally. I moved down to Oxford, where I became the head of the international office there. My job was to bring students back to study in Oxford. That's my professional background. In terms of my political background, it goes back about 40 years. I first started getting involved in politics from the Vietnam War. I was chair of the North Manchester Anti-Vietnam War campaign. And this building was one of the places that we actually came to hold meetings, and it goes on from there, every war ever since. I joined CND when I was 21, and I've been actively involved ever since then. At the moment, we've got the campaign about Syria, but I'm fearful about what will happen in Estonia and Latvia with the build-up against the Russians. That might be the next campaign. I have a long history. If you look on the website, you'll see that it goes back genuinely 40 years and sustained on things such as the protection of public services and environmental campaigns. I've been involved in all of those continually. Even when I was in the Labour Party, I was in the Labour Party for just over 30 years. I was a Green there when the Green Party was growing. I still believed in environmental issues.
15 seconds.
Okay. I want to lead a campaign like Bernie Sanders and of those who made a scream in the referendum campaign of people saying, you are not representing us. I want the Green Party to take that surge and say, we are your favourite people. We are the people who do the things that all the others are ignoring. That's my campaign on this particular hustings. Thank you.
Hello, my name is David Malone. I spent 20 years making science documentaries for BBC television, mostly, and the last 8 years writing about finance. The reason I'm running for leader is that I think we need to recognise that one of the most defining things about our times is that most of the major parties around the world and in this country have surrendered to the idea that economics and finance no longer should be under democratic control. I would like this Green Party to say very clearly and cogently and passionately, this is wrong, it is dangerous, and it's radically undemocratic. I think we need to make finance and economics and their democratic control at the center of what people think of when they hear about our party. Why? Because if we don't, if we cannot, as we see fit, tax global corporations, regulate banks and financial institutions as we see fit, make them obey the rule of law and not have it as they currently are, too big to fail, too big to jail. Unless we can do these things, then virtually all of the things in our manifesto will be empty promises, because we will find that although we promised we would like to do them, we will find we will not be able to do them, because some financial institution backed up by some judge and some international trade agreement will tell you, oh, I'm sorry, you can't do that. Or if you do, this corporation will take you to arbitration and you'll lose and have to pay millions, hundreds of millions of pounds. Unless we tackle these things, then all the things we would like to do with the environment, we will not be able to do. And the other reason is because I've campaigned on the doorstep, like everyone else here, and people will say to you, you're lovely people, but you really think that everything can be solved by hugging a tree and kissing a whale. We have to let them know we understand how to run the rest of a country. That's what I would like to be able to tell people on Newsnight, and I can do it. Thank you.
I'd just like to sort of stress that I am going to be very strict on time, as you probably noticed already, because we have got quite a lot to get through, and I'm sure there are a lot of questions. So, and that will apply to people asking questions as well. So make sure it's snappy when you do get to that point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to talk this afternoon. I bring with me apologies from my co-running mate, Jonathan Bartley. His son has a serious operation coming up, so he's staying with his family this weekend, but he sends his very best wishes. Our overriding reason for standing for co-leadership is because we believe there's a real opportunity right now in all of this flux and chaos of where politics is in this country. And we believe there is an opportunity, an unprecedented opportunity, to really push for the possibility of building progressive politics, some kind of political alliance, and we can talk about that later, a progressive alliance, but with the prize being electoral reform. I am impatient for this party to take its rightful place in the heart of British politics, as I'm sure you are too. I joined the party 30 years ago this year, and it feels like it's taking an awful long time. And if we're serious about the urgency of the climate crisis and the inequality crisis, then we need to move faster. And that's what I think is possible right now. And I look forward to the questions to explain a bit more about why I think that's more possible now than it has been for a while. But we're also standing on a ticket of saying that we believe that the Green Party needs to better reflect the society in which we operate. You only need to look around us, lovely as it is to see everybody here, but we do not reflect the true diversity of this country. We would set up an Equalities Commission to work out how best we can be more inclusive and get our message out to many parts of the country for whom, as yet, they still know little about our policies, and yet they are probably the people who might benefit the most from the hope that I believe that is at the heart of green politics. And finally, we also want to do some work on digital democracy to try to make our party more internally democratic and learn from Podemos in Spain and the Alternative in Denmark, who've been really pioneering new ways of using digital democracy to engage their members in more of the decision-making and to get our message out more widely. And finally, since you haven't stopped me, job sharing, just to quickly say, standing for a job share because we believe that we are pioneering sharing power, which is a crucial principle for the Green Party. What better way to do it than to encapsulate that in the way we actually do politics ourselves? Thank you.
Right. Thank you, and thank you for mentioning that Jonathan isn't able to be here because of his son's operation as well. So obviously that's a very good reason for not being able to make it.
Right. The Green Party was actually founded in response to a study called Limits to Growth by the MIT in the United States, which said that we were running out of resources and out of places to put our pollution. And they predicted that there would be a very deep recession if we continued to exceed what the planet could cope with. So what was needed was a soft landing. So I asked the founder members, I joined a few months after the party was founded, to say, well, how are you going to sort of plan for a soft landing? They said, oh, we haven't worried about that yet. First things first, we've got to stop trashing the planet. What are your ideas? Well, I was floored. I had no idea at all. But by the time I got home that night, I had thought of an idea, and it was this: basic income. How to make a recession acceptable to whole populations. Now, I'm still waiting for an idea, a better idea than that, 43 years on. And if anybody has doubts about the basic income, then again, see my blog, right? It is answered comprehensively. The idea should be out there in the mainstream all along. Now, we can give a message to the poor that we can get the benefit sanctions, the Department of Work and Pensions, we can get them off your back. The universal credit isn't working. But to the rich, we can say, look, we can save the planet, but it'll cost you, because there will have to be a degree of restitution enough to pay for to make sure that everybody feels secure in a recession.
And I'm Simon Cross, and thank you for inviting me to Manchester. As a lot of you can probably hear, since moving to Southend, I haven't lost my Sheffield accent. I was brought up in Sheffield. My father came from a background of shopkeeping. My mother was very much working class from the steelworks. But I decided to stand for Green Party leadership for three very distinct reasons. First of all, when I look around the party and I look about where we should be getting our votes from, I certainly believe that we should be a lot more diverse and a lot more appealing to diverse groups. And what I've heard since I decided to stand from a lot of the diversity groups within the party is they are very, very surprised at the representation on this leadership panel. So am I. I don't ever want to see a panel that looks like this ever again. So my aims would be first and foremost to set up a leadership team, a strong leadership team, drawing from the experience of every single diverse group within the party and making sure that every time we get a chance to be on a platform, we have an expert who has experience to speak for us so that we speak as experts on the things that are the most important to us. Secondly, I've been a Green for 30 years, or I've been supportive of the Greens, I've been part of the Greens, I've been active within the Green Party up and down that 30 years. And what we've sort of lost is our original focus, and that is that we are actually, whichever way you look at it, a party for the environment and for social justice. And I don't think we should ever shy away from that. I think everything else that comes within our policy is part of that. I think if you look at the environment, if we carry on as we are, nothing else matters. If we destroy this planet, we're finished. And the third thing is, I really do believe strongly in community. I believe if we look at the diverse people that we have in this party and we go out and we seek those groups, the BME groups, the LGBT plus groups, if we go and seek the disenfranchised feminist groups, the disabled and the handicapped, those add up to very, very big numbers. If we can target those people and God talk to them, we will win.
Yeah. Thank you. I would now like to ask Wendy to read out the statement for Martie Warin, who's also sent his apologies, but has asked for a brief statement to be read out.
This is the statement of Martie Warin. Hi all, I do apologise that I couldn't make it and hope you'll forgive me. My name is Martie Warin, and as you'll know, I'm currently running for the post of leader of the Green Party of England and Wales. Let me give you some background info. I'm a musician and firmly believe that the arts are essential for any community to thrive. I'm also a strict vegetarian, and I firmly believe that compassion and caring for people, animals, and the environment are vitally important for a prosperous and moral society to thrive. I joined the Green Party in 2010 because there is no doubt in my mind that the policies of the Green Party are what people, the planet, and all of its inhabitants need, especially when we're in an era when all mainstream parties seem to offer is more of the same, which is primarily austerity. People are disillusioned with politics for a reason, but given a chance, I think that us Greens could change that. I was elected as a parish councillor for Easington Village in 2013. I care deeply about the community and try to help out wherever I can. I'm also on the committee of my local watering hole, the Southside Social Club if you're ever in the area, and thoroughly enjoy the time I spend there. Austerity has failed. Social injustice is rife. The working class, the poor, and the most vulnerable in our society have been getting a very bad deal for far too long. And if elected, I would aim to focus on correcting this social injustice. I am proud to call myself an eco-socialist and believe that now is the perfect time for us to reach out to and strengthen our relationship with trade unions and trade unionists. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is Dacre here, or anyone else who there was something he wanted to raise briefly? Right, Jemima, person in the striped shirt. I'll give you 1 minute to sort of make the point that you were going to make. There's a microphone.
Hi everyone, I'm Jemima. I'm co-chair of Young Greens Women of Colour Liberation Group, and as a few of you have mentioned about the lack of diversity within the leadership race, for me personally it's to do with the fact that there are no prominent women of colour actually running this year, and I feel like it's a shame considering as a party we're supposed to try and appeal to a big group of people, and we just want to read out this open letter and see what everyone thinks. Okay, we, the undersigned, hereby call upon Green Party members to vote for reopen nominations, or otherwise known as RON, in the 2016 Green Party leadership election. As Greens, we pride ourselves as being proud of our beliefs. We do not compromise when things get difficult and stand by what we know is right. We are deeply concerned at the lack of diversity, as I'm sure all of you on the panel are, amongst the candidates for Green Party leader. Out of the 5 candidates standing, we only have 1 woman standing, Caroline. And that's only as part of a job share, where the Conservative leadership election has 2. With regards to BME leadership candidates, number standing is, well, there really isn't much there. There are 0 declared LGBTIQA candidates standing. Why is this? What barriers are in place that prevent those in minorities from standing? In a party that prides itself on standing for equality for all, this is just not acceptable. We urgently call for members to vote to reopen nomination as first preference in the leadership election. And all that means basically is that it will allow other candidates in order to go and run, in order to increase the diversity within the party right now instead of in the future when the future leaders are declared. And the people who have signed this letter so far are Elliot Corner.
Can I think that's sufficient time. I think you've made your point.
Okay, yeah. Thank you everyone.
Okay. Thank you. I would now like to open it up to the floor for questions. We'll take maybe 2 or 3 at a time, and I'll give all the candidates an opportunity to answer. Matt here has a roving mic. Well, Caroline covered. Yeah.
I did give an explanation.
Yeah.
And he can't be here because his son's having an operation. The statement that I read for the things that I said were from both.
Yeah. And if there's any specific questions around that, you'll have a chance to ask them during the session if we have time. Right, I'll take... No, that's it. Basically a point of view that we've kind of, in fact, allowed the meeting to hear. I'm not suggesting that we debate that or take that as a question. I think we all heard it. Now this is for questions to the candidates that are standing, in order that people can differentiate between them.
But that could be turned into questions, couldn't it? You know,
Yes.
Your views of what Jemima just said.
Yes, it could. Yes.
If we want to support that position, what should we do here and now?
I'll come back to that later at the end. Now there's a gentleman. Am I allowed? Sorry, a person in a blue shirt with not much hair. Sorry. I'm going to put my foot in it, whatever happens. And then I'll take the person directly behind. So, right, if we take those two first.
Last night I noticed a friend of mine who is a member of the Labour Party, a Corbynista, has written his letter to Kate Green, our local MP, complaining about the lack of democracy within the Labour Party with regard to their chaotic election process for a new leader or not. I suggested to him, well, why not just join the Green Party? We have a democratic process. He replied, what, and consigned myself to eternal irrelevance. What's the panel think of that? And what should I say back to him? That is probably polite and makes a good point as well. Thank you.
Okay. Right at the back there.
Hi, thanks. Two concerns about this much vaunted progressive alliance that people have talked about for many, many years, not just recently, both locally and nationally. Number one, the kind of horse trading that goes on, it very often leaves the junior partners at a severe disadvantage, and the mudguard theory, as they call it. I'm not making a case against alliances, but I would ask the candidates what they would do to safeguard against us being ripped off, essentially. And the second more important thing is that if a national alliance was to be formed, this would mean overturning the constitutional right of local parties to select who stands where, or more importantly, who doesn't stand where. So if candidates are enthusiastic for such an alliance, will they stand in front of conference to persuade conference to give the 2/3 vote to rob local parties of their constitutional rights?
Right. I'll take one more for this person in the red hair just there.
Okay. I'm very interested in what the various candidates consider are the significant alliances, whether electoral or general political alliances, that we should make in the future.
Right, thank you. I'll take it in the reverse order. So Simon first.
Right, on the first point about whether we're relevant or not, after the closure of the DECC, which was the third massive mistake that the new Prime Minister made, I think we've never been more relevant. I think we're certainly going to be, over the next weeks and months, a little bit more relevant than a Labour Party that's torn itself apart. Which brings me on to the second point. With regard to anything about progressive alliance, a regressive alliance is not what we want. If you form an alliance with a party that cannot form a progressive alliance within itself, then that becomes a little bit seals its own fate. With regard to your question about where we should look for alliances, I seriously don't think we should. I think that between now and 2020, when we should have a programmed general election, nobody's got a stomach for that sort of thing right now. I think what we should do is fight and fight and fight to resolve this time-old issue that our system is not democratic. We need proportional representation. Nothing else will do. We need proportional representation. We need to lower the voting age to 16, and we need to make sure that in future government listens to the people that elect it. They told us in the Brexit referendum that we weren't listening, and what's happened since the 23rd of June? Nobody's listened. The Labour Party haven't listened. The Tories haven't listened. We're still listening. So why don't people come and join us? We'll listen to them. We'll take their concerns. We'll fight for a better system.
Right.
Yes, I must admit, I'm not quite sure I followed the gist of the first question, but my sort of general answer is we shouldn't be concentrating on what's happening in the Labour Party. We have our own house, and we need to keep it in order. And as I keep saying, we should be talking. The main focus of any political party, and certainly this one, should be the success or otherwise of the Paris Agreement. Progressive Alliance. Well, you see, part of what I shall be doing, if you get me as leader, my first priority will be to recruit the kind of people who would never vote Labour, that would not think of themselves as part of this Progressive Alliance, who are terribly worried about the appalling environmental record of this government, exemplified by Theresa May suddenly scrapping the last vestiges of any environmental department. So the point is, the Progressive, once we are seen to be taking Tory vote, what used to be Tory, or at the very least Lib Dem votes, from the general populace, then the Progressive Alliance might work. But if all we're doing is dividing up those people who would never vote Tory, we shan't. We'll never get through, make a breakthrough.
Thank you. I wanted to address Jemima's point first, because I have a great deal of sympathy with the direction of the point that you made. And I do think we have to be serious about making this party far more inclusive. You know, there is a perception that we're white and middle class, and the perception is there because we are predominantly white and middle class. And as I said in my opening statement, I think that means that we are losing lots of talent that I think we could be really benefiting from in this party. But it also means that lots of people that perhaps don't feel much hope in the political system aren't hearing what we've got to say. I think we need to go out into communities and listen, and it'll be a slow process, a bottom-up process, but that is what this party has to invest in doing, and that's why, as I said in my opening words, Jonathan and I are very serious about setting up an equality commission. We would love to take your advice and the advice of many others as to how it best goes about producing some processes whereby all of local parties can go out there and engage a much wider set of people. On the issue of being eternally irrelevant, well, I mean, I would say that the Greens are growing, we're making a real difference, and what you get when you vote Green or you join the Green Party is a unified set of party policies and principles. When you join the Labour Party right now, frankly, you don't know what you're getting. So I think if people want to be sure about a direction in politics, then the best way to do it is to vote Green. On the Progressive Alliance, let me just simply say, for me, the whole point of a Progressive Alliance is to get electoral reform. That is what this is about. And I feel that unless we do get electoral reform and unlock the kind of political system that we have at the moment, all of our ideas are still going to remain at the ideas stage because we're not in a position to get power behind our ideas. Now, I think that actually we do have a good chance of persuading the other parties on this, a much better chance than I've ever seen before. People like Chuka Umunna setting up an all-party group on an electoral reform in Parliament. John McDonnell doing a public U-turn saying he now supports electoral reform. Jeremy Corbyn saying as long as it has some kind of link to constituencies like the additional member system, then he's in favour of it. The unions changing their views on it. Civil society talking about it. Post-referendum people talking about it, saying that many people voted Leave because they feel so disengaged and angry with the political process, which, under first past the post, systematically excludes the views of everyone except those swing voters in marginal seats. So I think that this is an idea whose time has come, but the prize of it all is electoral reform. And secondly, really crucially, I don't need to stand up in front of conference to try and change the constitution, because in our view, of course local parties are sovereign. This doesn't happen unless local parties choose it to happen all around the country. This isn't about overriding local parties. It's about setting up a conversation in local parties, hopefully to move in this direction if that's what each local party wants to do.
On the topic of the Green Party irrelevance, I think what that boils down to is that the two main parties are becoming irrelevant themselves, in the sense that they are largely a choice, if Corbyn goes, between Tory and Tory light, which I see to make a progressive alliance with a Corbyn-led Labour Party. That makes some sense. To make an alliance with a Blairite, why would we support Tory light? What kind of a victory is it to say we've got the Tories out and we've got a pale version of them in? I see no relevance in that. In terms of being irrelevant, we will part of our problem with being irrelevant is we're seen as a pressure group. And as I said in my opening statement, people aren't sure that we know how to do the rest of running a nation. If we can convince them that we do understand what the economy is and how finance works and the constraints that international law and trade agreements place upon policies, then I think they will think, okay, these people are grown up, these people could run the country. So I don't think we should panic and say we must be in an alliance with those parties, because those parties are becoming less relevant. The Brexit referendum, I think, showed that people were tired of that centre, the progressive centre ground. I mean, I don't see what could be more clear than that. People I don't think they want a progressive alliance. I think they want a radical alliance. I think they want a party to say, those assumptions which all the major parties share, those are the reasons we're in that pickle. Tory and Labour got us into the Depression of 2008 together because they share the same basic assumptions. We need a party which says, we don't disagree with the details, we disagree with the actual assumptions which underlie where they start from. We cannot get the future we want starting where they start. So there's no point in engaging with those things. We have to say, start from there, you're right, nothing can change. This party needs to be a radical party. Thank you.
Eternally irrelevant. Well, 1 million votes is not irrelevant in the system, and that's a big achievement for us and a large slice of the electorate. We have councillors in a tremendous number of local authorities. And if you look at what those councillors are doing, we always seem to be the font of new ideas. I was the leader of the Green Group on Oxford City Council, and it was our housing solutions that 50% of development should be for social housing that were taken up by the others. That's not irrelevant, we have a big impact. I'm now the leader of the Green Group on Oxfordshire County Council, and it's been papers that we produced which actually have influenced directly and obviously the changes to the structure of local government. We came up with the ideas. That's not irrelevant. That's setting the pattern of local government there for the next 30 years. About 4 years ago, Oxfordshire Green Party had about 370 members. Now we've got 1,560. Well, that's not irrelevant. That's a massive, massive change. Who are becoming irrelevant are the Labour Party. Constant internal battles between the Progressives, Jeremy Corbyn, who I've known for a long time, and the Thatcherites. Basically, that's what they are, the Blairites. People who are neocons. Those people, I don't want an alliance with them. It's as simple as that. We should push for Green Party policies, and we should do it together at the grassroots with everybody in the Green Party.
Thank you. Just the people outside, just before we go on to further questions, there's a seat at the front. I think there are some spare chairs across the, if there's room to fit them in. Are there not? Okay. Well, there is one seat here. Right. Next questions. I'll take the person in the green jumper just there, and then the man in the striped top here.
Hi, I'm interested in your ideas about how we can have a democratic process of exiting from the EU if we don't get a swift general election.
Hi, I'd like to know where you want the party to be in 5 years' time and how we would get there under your captaincy.
Right, I'll take one more. Right at the back. Keep you fit, Matt.
Hi there. My question would be that currently we're going through some crazy political times, and both parties, I think, the main parties have taken a really bad hit in the way that the public views them. The Green Party, though, has been a stable and steady place that's always been here. How do we seize this opportunity, and maybe we should get a bit more radical and a bit more activist in our approach? How do you feel?
Right, thank you. We'll start with Clive this time, and then finish with Simon.
Right. I suppose I'm still a bit. I don't think I've completely escaped the denial stage of the Brexit result, so maybe I'm not quite ready to answer this question. But my feeling coloured by that is that the obvious answer is that there must be another referendum or something before we trigger Article 50. We've got to know more precisely what it's about. Now, the trouble is the vote would come exactly the same if the people in places like Doncaster and Barnsley feel as threatened as they do and think that Europe is getting out of Europe is the answer. It isn't. And I think we've got to campaign along those. But how do we come out? Well, as I say, I suppose I'm hoping that vote can be changed. So whether that amounts to a complete answer, I don't know. 5 years from now. Well, as I say, my point is that we have got to reach out. I mean, the vote in the 1989 European elections, the Green vote was absolutely consistent throughout England, not the rest of the UK, at 42%. It was 42% of the Conservative vote. Now, I suspect that a lot of them have been Lib Dems ever since then. But the point is, out there is a huge constituency that thinks, Green. Now, what they didn't know in 1989 was that it would cost them. I have canvassed on doorsteps where I've said, look, we can save the planet just like we said we could in 1989, but it will cost you. It can be done. Please, we've got to get those people on board.
Thank you.
So the first question about exiting from the EU in as democratic way as possible. I mean, I have huge sympathy with the people that have signed that petition, 4 million people kind of more or less saying, let's rerun the referendum. And I know where they're coming from, and it's a cry of pain, and I feel the same. But I just think that to try to rerun it instantly, but just to change the rules, would be bad democracy and bad politics as well. I think that if part of the analysis of why so many people voted to leave was because they feel that their voices aren't being heard, then what better way to reinforce that than by not listening to them? Having said that, I do think that we need as much debate as possible before triggering Article 50. There was a really interesting proposal by some lawyers to set up an independent commission to take evidence about the impact of different forms of Brexit on different parts of society, and I think that's a really good idea. I think we shouldn't be triggering Article 50 until we've had that process, until we've also had a vote in Parliament about what kind of Brexit scenario we're going for. And I think we need to make common cause to make sure that we are going for free movement, strong environmental protection, workers' rights, and yes, access to the single market as part of that. So I think there will be all kinds of civil society groups that are active in this space, and we should join them doing that. Yes, and then a vote on the second referendum, sorry. So a vote on whatever comes out of that 2 years after the Article 50. So a second referendum on the terms of whatever comes out of the discussions on Article 50. Sorry, it's difficult when you've got to go so fast. What's the party going to look like in 5 years? Well, what I don't want it to look like. I don't want there just still to be one MP after another 5 years. We've got to be more ambitious. Our agenda is urgent, and that's why I keep coming back to electoral reform and believing that this is our best chance that we've had for a very long time of getting it. So I would like to see us with 3, 4, 5, 6 MPs by 2020 if there's an earlier election before that. Being more radical and activist, love to be more radical and activist. I think on fracking we should be taking more non-violent direct action. I think we need to be doing the same if Hinkley goes ahead or nuclear power stations. We've always had a proud tradition of combining civil disobedience, non-violent direct action as well as our party politics, and I think we should continue to do that.
I was in favour of remaining in, but I do not think we should be. I do not support the idea of having another referendum. You cannot pick and choose which democratic decisions you like. If you do, then when you have one where you win, let's say a Green Party gets elected, 100,000 Tories march through Westminster saying, well, they were lied to, people weren't informed, we should have rerun the election. What's going to be your argument? There won't be one. I don't like it, but that was a bad democratic, but it was a democratic decision. I worry that people are obsessed by Europe. The fact of the matter is far more of your sovereignty is going to be given away if we sign TTIP, CETA and TISA than was ever given to Europe. So if people continue to obsess about Europe, then they will have achieved their aim, which is to distract you with something which is not very important while they poleaxe you with something you haven't looked at. Stop obsessing about Europe and look at these trade agreements. That's where your sovereignty will go. Just read them. Where should we be in 5 years? We should have opposed and defeated the TTIP. Otherwise, your democracy will be a hollow, dress-up version of democracy. Should we be more radical? Yes. The middle ground of politics is just a killing ground of hope. And the people who still vote for those main parties don't vote for them out of a sense of hope for the future. They vote for them out of a sense of fear of the unknown. That's very brittle. Let's not join them there. That's a place to just go and become and die. We should offer them hope by saying that middle ground doesn't work. It's irrelevant. And we should stake out an entirely new place for democracy.
Exiting Europe democratically, well, a lot depends on how the government themselves play it. They may well immediately trigger Article 50 and then enter negotiations. They might enter negotiation, then afterwards trickle Article 50. If they do that, then there'll probably be another referendum on the terms and conditions that they're actually setting down. And they will probably go for what's called an EEA solution. That's the same as Norway. What we should do in that situation is clearly call for more democracy. Because my wife and I were in Oslo a couple of years ago talking to politicians there. And what they say is to get access to the single market, we pay as much as you do proportionally into the EU. But we have no MEPs, we have no representation. We give them money, but we have no control over what goes on. That is a very, very strong political argument that we should be seen openly and clearly as putting forward a major step in terms of the democratization of decision-making about what happens with Europe. Where will we be in 5 years' time? Just like Caroline, I want us to break through at different points, whether it's Bristol, Lancaster, whether it's Norwich, different places around the country where we have strength and we can get the parliamentary representation. Those, I think, will happen, and we will continue to grow, getting more and more councillors in local government and influential people at different points. We need all of that, and that's what I see in 5 years' time where the Green Party will be. Do we need to be more radical? Yes. We need to take a little leaf out of what's happening in some of the radical parties in Europe. We also need to look at Bernie Sanders' campaign. He launched a campaign against the power of the great corporations and said, we should support the 99%. In the referendum, there's no doubt at all, there was a political scream for those who say, you do not represent us. You are the puppets of the corporations. We should say, we support you. Vote for us, otherwise it could drift off to the right. That's what I say, we've got to be as radical as we possibly can in the next 4 years.
Question 1. 62.5% of the electorate in this country did not vote Brexit. The system that it was done by means that the people who didn't vote weren't counted. We need to make sure that we get the best deal for the 62.5% that didn't vote Brexit. Now, what that looks like, I don't know, you don't know, Theresa May doesn't know. Because until people take the fingers off the triggers and sit round a table and negotiate, we don't know what that deal's going to look like. But what we have to do is make sure it's not a cobbled up version of TTIP, and we have to make sure that it's not something that's cooked up by the WTO. Any decision that's made, it must be put to the country. We must have a conversation about this. It's got to go to the country again. Where we'll be in 5 years? I see the Green Party in 5 years in a much, much stronger position in government, so long as we keep fighting and fighting for a democratic system, not the awful two-party system that we have now. We must fight for that. We must get that. At the 2020 election, we will finish up with a proper representation of Greens. We know for a fact that 16 to 17% would vote Green if they thought they would get seats. With regard to activism, yes, I think that the only way we get the groups that I talked about earlier, and also people like like Greenpeace, like Friends of the Earth, on our side, is to be with them. When the nanas are fighting fracking, we need to fight with them, as we do, but we need to fight with them. We need to fight. We need to turn up at every single event that's put on by a BME group, by an LGBTQ group. I know that many of us do, but we need to turn up in more numbers, and we need to show that we have solidarity with them, and their solidarity will come to us.
Yeah. I'll take 3 more questions. The gentleman in the short-sleeved green shirt first. Then the lady in the green turquoisey top. And I'll take, yes, let's start.
Thank you.
First.
Paul Harris, World Green Party. With the disbandment of the Departments of Energy and Climate Change and the potential loss of our MEPs if we sign Article 50, how would you keep pressure on government over the things that matter to us about the environment and climate change?
Margaret Westbrook from Trafford Green Party. Many up here regard our party as being dominated by the South. We, like other areas, cities, are in the process of selecting a candidate for the mayoral election for Devon Mank. Number one, what do you think about my statement regarding a lack of representation nationally from the North? And secondly, what support would you as a leader give to our campaign in Manchester in particular with regard to our mayoral candidate?
And then at the end of that row there.
Thanks. How are you, as the leader of the party, going to make sure that we start getting publicity on the television when BBC and ITV won't even show our party political broadcasts? That's what I want to know. Thanks.
Okay. Start with Caroline.
Thank you. Yes, so the first question was about how we're going to keep up pressure around climate change, particularly with the loss of DEC and the loss of our MEPs. And climate change is the thing that keeps me awake at night. I think it is the most pressing challenge that we face. And I think that politicians aren't going to take it seriously unless we get more public pressure around it. And I wish it were not the case. I wish we could just hope and expect our political leaders to take leadership over this. But I think it won't happen unless there's real pressure coming from voters, and so people realise there's actually a political cost to be had if they don't address climate change more ambitiously. And so that means that we need to be organising, and I think around some of the narratives that we have around climate change, I think we've got to be saying, yes, if we don't tackle the climate crisis, it's going to be absolutely awful, but also, more importantly, that if we do, there are real positive synergies that we can get out of it. I really do believe that one of the best ways of getting people to change some of their behaviours is recognising that the kinds of policies we need to tackle climate change are policies that are going to make us better off anyway in terms of our quality of life. You know, if you think about having much better public transport, properly fuel-efficient homes and so forth, these are positive things in themselves. So let's get organised in our local communities and be telling that message, not just a terrifying message, which frankly often puts people off. Is it dominated by the South? I do understand why you think that, and of course Brighton has been a target constituency, and I'm sorry for your sake that it was in the South, because that gives that impression. Obviously the media is also centred in the South. Our whole political system is represented in the South. I'm not sure if it's true to say that the party is. We could have a bigger debate about that when I'm not under time pressure. But to your question about whether or not we would support your bid for the mayorals, absolutely. I think there's going to be massive media attention on what happens in Manchester and Greater Manchester, and I think we should do everything possible within the resources that we have to make sure that we put serious resources into that campaign and make sure it is a big part of our overall media and political strategy. And the final one was about publicity. How do we get the BBC and ITV to be showing our broadcasts and so forth? I mean, they will cover us when we are making news, and that means we do have to keep making news. And so that comes back to getting more people elected, or it comes back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier about the non-violent direct action and so on. But they will cover us when we are doing things. So we need to have vibrant local parties up and down the country. And if we were elected, then I think what we would want to try to do is to make sure there's more support for local and regional parties to the extent possible to enable you to be able to having that activity. Some of it doesn't even have to cost anything. If you had press releases going out from my office or the national office, it ought to be automatically on everybody else's computer so they can rework them, reuse them, recycle them, and make the most political capital out of them.
How to keep pressure on the government over climate change? I think we need to be the party that is seen to talk to and be friends of science. In the climate change debate, it's dominated by policy wonks and the paid pundits of the large corporations. We need to take them on and point out that these people are scientifically illiterate and they're liars. And there's nothing that will get you more media attention than if you stand up and say that the person working for Exxon is a liar. It's close to libel, but you can get away with it if the person is. And they are... I should know I do it all the time with bankers. So we need to be on the platform with scientists. We need to be, for them to want us to be there as the party that talks to them. So that the other parties are the parties of bullshit and we are the parties of scientific opinion. Is it dominated by the South? Yes. And by the sort of metropolitan South. It's not a crime, it's just a fact. What would I do about it? Well, if I was leader, I live in Scarborough in North Yorkshire. That's what I would do with it, and I would continue to live there. Can we get more publicity from the media? Yes, as long as we talk about the things that I work in the media. They have a notion of what the important things are. And if we're constantly talking about things like, things that we know are important, but which they don't think are important, they won't listen to you. If we talk about money laundering, and the fact that it's money laundering which is keeping the housing bubble going, they will talk to us. If we talk about tax evasion and how successive governments have refused to do the very simple things which would stop it, they will talk to us. And these things are not non-green issues, because as I said, unless you can tax corporations, unless you can pop the property bubble in a controlled way, we won't do all the things that we want to do about the environment. These two things are inextricably linked. So we just need to give our message in a way that they recognize as important.
Okay, pressure on the government. Every time a report comes out, whether it's a report from the Paris UN climate change conference, we've got to be there at Paris talking to the media and saying this isn't good enough. We want the British government to be the leading force. We must be at those points of interest for the media, and we must keep the pressure on. There are a whole series of things to do. I agree with the idea of talking to the scientific community, because there is a consensus amongst the scientists that our solutions are the way forward, and we need to be together with them to make sure that we get to the media and say, look, we have these people behind us, these are the experts, these are the specialists, and they're saying this is the way forward. But in terms of the politics, when we go to people, we've got to try and emphasize the positive advantages. If you do have solar panels on your house, it's going to actually cut your energy bill. That's the way to sell all these things, because there are tremendous advantages. In terms of the mayor, the elected mayor, these people are being introduced essentially by central government, so they get somebody who is business friendly as the elected mayor. Tony Lloyd is a Labour Party hack, and he will do whatever the local corporations want. That's the reality. We've got to say, if we put our candidate up, there will be a balance. Yes, we need economic development and we need change, but that's got to be put in balance against the environmental impact that those things have. And a Green candidate would do that. We should be up here and everywhere else that there's an elected mayor pushing that particular line. When it comes to use of the media inherently will ignore us, but we've got to go out and create events, activities, direct action, things they can't avoid, basically so they take notice of us. That's the only way to get their attention and to get the message through. We can do that. We're good at that. Let's get on to it.
I think with regard to keeping climate change and other environmental issues front and centre, I think every single time a decision is made, like, as I said earlier, the third bad decision made in 3 days by Theresa May, every time that happens, we need to hold them to account, and we need to keep holding them to account. Every time somebody decides to put through a fracking application, we need to make sure that we're there and that we're actually fighting those applications. We cannot have this planet destroyed anymore. I tell you, if climate change carries on at the rate it is, nothing else matters. It really is as serious as that. With regard to your local mayoral candidate and whether we live in a Westminster-centric politics, I come from the north and I live in the southeast. My view on this is that what we actually really need to do is focus on funding the party correctly. We're not a rich party, and it's simply because of the fact that we refuse to take donations from people who we do not trust. We need to find more people that we trust, and we need to find strong, solid donors. we need to look to some of the people who would benefit from a green push towards green energy. We need to find people that would benefit from a push towards green housing, and we need to get those people to come with us and to support us. Also, that money must be devolved down. The best candidate we had in the London mayoral elections was Sian Berry. She should have won. Her campaign was fantastic, and it wasn't a dirty, filthy smear campaign, and she would have cut the fares, not put them up. The fact is that a Manchester mayor on the Green side will do things for the people of Manchester. Any other candidate probably won't. When we look at publicity, has anybody ever heard of photo bombing? We need a strong leadership team. We need experts, and we need to press bomb them. We need to be at every single event, everything we possibly can, with an expert voice and somebody who's prepared to jump in front of the cameras, somebody who's prepared to be that expert voice, somebody who will, when they finish up with one of the guests not turning up, just step in and talk like an expert about green policy. We need to take every opportunity we can. We need to turn up at everything we possibly can, and we need to talk as experts on what we know we are experts on. That is, I've trusted this party. I believe we were right for 30 years, and I still do, and I think everybody else in this room should believe that we're right, and keep following that, and keep telling people that we're right.
First of all, I can claim to be living the life in that I live in an ecological community called Lilac, where all our houses are hermetically sealed. We have mechanical ventilation, heat recovery, solar panels on the roof, and so on. So climate change ain't my fault, right? Now, the thing is, right, the point is, there's no point in talking about climate change unless you talk about less economic activity than there would otherwise be. Now, I keep saying a recession. Oh, no, don't talk about a recession. That's what the trouble is. All right, there are various forms of green growth. To a limited extent, yes, but less economic growth than would otherwise be the case is necessary as a policy option. Both those things, climate change and lower growth, are both platitudes unless you've got something to reassure whole populations that they are possible, which is what I said to the founding members of the Green Party in the first place. You know, it does come back to that. Right. South dominated. If you vote me, you get Lancashire, lived in Yorkshire all my life. I have endorsed Andrew Cooper as my deputy. You'll get Kirklees, which is Huddersfield, to people who've never heard of it. Publicity. Now, I'm reading a book called The Political Brain, which explains that you've got to tap into people's emotions. It's no good giving them rational facts and figures, and it is. I can recommend that you all buy it, because that's where I shall be trying to sort of work with a team. You'll find I'm a time player, and the other, since I ought to mention to a previous one, in response to the ethnic diversity, I shall be listening. I have agreed to come to a Hustings in Manchester, arranged by Rashid Nix. Now, whether the other candidates volunteer for that, I'm not sure, but I've come to listen rather than tell them what to do.
Right, we're getting close to time. If we're very quick, we can probably fit in another round of questions, and if the panel could actually restrict their answer to no more than 1 minute maximum. I'll take the person with the greyish hair and the jacket, and longish hair. It looks it from here. So, and then the person with the beard and the glasses, and the person with the striped shirt. Yeah.
Right, is this turned on? I don't normally need a mic because I'm normally quite loud. It is it? Right, I won't deafen people. Well, I live in Rochdale, which is a land of the depressingly appalling MPs. And incidentally, Caroline, if you get the opportunity to push our current MP under a bus, please take the opportunity. No, as violently as possible. I'm only joking, just in case this goes somewhere else. No, when I go into the local club, which to be honest is quite reactionary. There's a lot of people that vote UKIP. And
can you make your questions quick as well?
Yeah, sorry. The question is, when I put policies of the Green Party to them, without mentioning the Green Party, they think, oh, that's a good idea, that's a good idea, that's a good idea. How do we get that across to people? Because as soon as I say I'm from the Green Party, oh, I'm just going to vote UKIP. You know, even though they agree with the policies.
Right, okay.
How will electing you as Green Party leader increase and widen the diversity of people joining and crucially standing to be Green Party candidates? And why is this more effective than voting to reopen nominations?
A kind of similar question to my friend. My point is we need to stop talking about promoting equality and actually address it now. So what's your opinion on reopening nominations from each candidate, please? Thank you.
I'll take another question because that was kind of two the same. Person with glasses just there. Yeah.
Given that there's a connection between meat and dairy production and climate change, what more will you do as an individual and as a leader to promote a meat-free diet?
Take David Malone first.
The Green Party name problem. Yeah, I think this gets back to the idea that the Green Party name itself conjures up an image of people who hug trees and kiss whales. We have a simple choice. We either ditch the name, which I wouldn't be in favour of, or we have to work very hard to make sure that when people think of the Green Party, they think of how a party that they could trust to run the rest of the country. I've said it before. I'm sorry. That is my answer. I have had exactly the same problem. They want to know, do you know all the rest of what it takes to run a country? Either we do or we don't. Either they trust us to run the rest of the country, or they think we don't know. That, to me, is the hurdle we have to get over. Otherwise, we are unelectable. Diversity, how would I help? I have no idea how I would help. Maybe being a white man, middle-aged, middle class doesn't help at all. What I would say is that having a diverse party is not quite as good as having a party that has good ideas. So the only thing that I hope that I could bring to the party in my male, pale, and apparently quite stale condition is that I think I've got good ideas. And I don't think my ideas would be better if I was black or a woman or gay. I think they're just the ideas. Okay? I would say, by all means, we need a diverse party. 10 seconds. But let's stick with good ideas, whoever they come from. Meat-free diet, yes, I think we should eat less meat. Do I think we should tell people to eat less meat or force them to? No, then we become greener than thou, which is no more enticing than holier than thou.
Thank you, Mick. He's from Rochdale. I stood as the parliamentary candidate in Rochdale twice. And you're right, there are some very odd people. I stood against Cyril Smith. Very odd. And then the latest one is no exception to that rule. Reopen nomination. Well, no, let's go back to how do we get the policies across? You need more activity at the grassroots so people can empathise with the people who are knocking on the door and say, yes, I know you're reliable. We need that building of trust. It's the word trust which gets you from agreeing to policies to actually voting for them. And at national level, we can do that. With more representation, we'll be able to do it. We also need, I think, to be a very credible party in terms of our economics. So we can't be shot down in flames as just simple idealists. I think that's extremely important in winning people's support for your policies. We can do that. I think those are things that we work on and we develop. In terms of increasing diversity, I think we need to possibly change the image a little bit. Someone from the north of England might be a good idea, in terms of...
10 seconds.
Might be a good idea in terms of the presentation, the perception of who we are. We're not all middle class and from the south of England. Meat eating, there are many, many different policies the government could introduce immediately, and it would make a massive change in terms of people's eating habit. We know what they are. They're all there in the Green Party's policy statements. Let's do those. Those can actually make a real
that's
change.
Time.
Right, I'll be as quick as I can. Very important issues, but I'll try and cover them off. The relevance of green policy. I think what you need to do is introduce the policy, show people how strong it is, show people how strongly we believe in it. I believe very strongly in all green policy and always have done. It's the only party that's ever fitted what I wanted. And I think if you give people the policy and make it uncontrovertible, they can't disagree that that's what they like, and then tell them it's green policy, you might have a better chance of a win situation. With regard to diversity and reopen nominations, I might look like the most unusual champion of diversity that you've ever seen. I'm a Yorkshireman. I'm middle-aged. I wear a grey suit. Well, blue suit today. But I do believe in this, and I believe that one thing that we can do is open up a future leaders programme and encourage people from all the various diverse parts of the party to come along to that and make sure that they are prepared for leadership campaigns in the future. I don't want to see another panel like this. I'd rather see 50 people on there, all from different backgrounds. Vegetarianism, I'm a vegetarian myself. About 20% of the world's vegetarian. If we decide to impose vegetarianism on people, we'll lose 80% of the potential electorate. The way to do it is to gently persuade people that it's a healthier lifestyle, gently persuade people that it's a less expensive lifestyle, and also put in the animal welfare aspect. That way we can probably win some of those battles and reduce meat consumption.
Yes, well, of course, the idea that green policies, that everybody votes for green policies, not knowing that they're green policies, of course, we're stuck with the first past the post, and we've had talks about how we can get rid of that. All we can do apart from that is publicise that we do have these public policies and they are linked to us. On diversity, well, as I say, the main thrust is what the Green Party should be about. All these things are going to pale into insignificance if we don't solve the climate change problem and other forms of ecological devastation. Please, let's focus on that. If you know, the rights of minorities are going to be neither here nor there unless we sort that out. If we can actually do anything to help minorities in society as a whole, then I would say that Green Party policies will do that anyway. So I must admit that getting the actual complexion of the party is not critical. Was it? Have I had my time?
Well, I've got 2 seconds.
But climate change. Read my book, which I can sell you a copy of, and tell you.
Right, that's time.
Got a copy of there. It's got the answers to the link between the personal and the.
I think you've made your plug. Yeah.
Thank you. On the issue of how do we get across the policies without people being put off by the label, if you like, I think one of the best ways is just to get Greens elected. I think as soon as people see Green councillors in action, then they can see the whole gamut of things that we work on. The stereotypes go. We often get elected actually in some of the poorest areas. I was elected first of all in Oxford, and I represented the poorest ward in Oxford City, and you know, demonstrating in a sense by my election that the issues we were talking about were incredibly relevant to working class people living on the Cowley Road in Oxford. So I think it is by doing what we're here to do, which is to get councillors elected, to get our ideas into practice. On the issue of diversities again, I mean, it seems to me that we need to be addressing why more people from BME and other backgrounds aren't standing, rather than just simply reopening nominations, just simply doing that. And that is why I'm committed, and Jonathan with me are committed to having an Equalities Commission, taking advice from people, listening to people, and trying to ensure we've got in place the structures to enable people to have the confidence or whatever other support they need
10 seconds.
In order to come forward. And I'm very committed to mentoring. Generation Green is something my office has set up in order to try and mentor more people, and we want to do that more widely as well. On climate change, sorry, what was the last one? Sorry, don't count this against me because I can't read it. Meat free, yes. It's massively important to make sure that the issue of eating less meat is part of the overall climate debate. I am a vegetarian and I would try and become more vegan than I am, and it's a struggle, but I am trying. But we've got to make it a normal part of the conversation. At the moment, when most people talk about climate change, they don't talk about animal welfare and animal rights and eating less meat, and they should.
That's the time. We are overrunning slightly. I did offer the candidates a summing up. I think I'll make that even shorter. I think it's probably better that we've had a chance for more questions. In fact, I'm wondering whether to waive it at all. if everyone's happy, because I think you've probably had enough chance to speak. In which case, we will now switch over to the... Yeah? What was it? You had your hand up for some... Sorry? No, we've got the deputy leaders to do now. Yeah. This is only part one. I'm going to now ask the deputy leaders to replace our leaders on the stage. If people want to just kind of stretch or kind of get up, get down or whatever, we haven't really got time for a break, unfortunately.